The last thing Ethan Carter expected on a rainy Thursday afternoon was to destroy his own life. At 38, Ethan believed he had built the American dream. He lived in a quiet suburb outside Chicago with his wife, Lauren, and their 8-year-old daughter, Sophie. He wasn't rich, but after 15 years as an electrical engineer, he had earned enough to buy a comfortable home, take one family vacation every summer, and never worry about paying the bills. His marriage wasn't perfect. No marriage was. Lately, Lauren had become distant. She smiled less. She spent more time staring at her phone than talking to him. She claimed she was overwhelmed by freelance marketing projects that kept her working late into the night. Whenever Ethan asked if everything was okay, she always gave the same answer. "I'm just tired." He believed her, because that's what husbands do when they trust the woman they love. That Thursday, Ethan left work early after a sudden power outage shut down his office for the afternoon. He decided to surprise Lauren with her favorite coffee and maybe suggest they pick Sophie up from school together. He even stopped at the bakery to buy fresh cinnamon rolls. For the first time in months, he felt hopeful. Maybe they simply needed more time together. As he pulled into the driveway, something felt off. A black luxury SUV sat in front of the house. He didn't recognize it. Perhaps one of Lauren's clients. He shrugged and carried the coffee toward the front door. The house was unusually quiet. Then he heard it. Laughter. A man's laughter, followed by Lauren's unmistakable voice. His stomach tightened. "Ethan?" he whispered to himself. No, that couldn't be. He stepped inside. The coffee slipped from his hand and crashed onto the hardwood floor. Upstairs, footsteps. Then another laugh. Every instinct screamed at him not to go, but his feet climbed the stairs anyway. 1, 2, 3. His heart pounded louder with every step. The bedroom door wasn't completely closed. Through the narrow opening, Ethan saw something that shattered 15 years of marriage in a single heartbeat. Lauren, wrapped in nothing but a bedsheet, standing beside another man. The stranger froze. Lauren slowly turned toward the door. Their eyes met. Neither of them spoke. Time itself seemed to stop. Ethan couldn't breathe. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was simply broken. The cinnamon rolls were still downstairs. The coffee soaked into the floor. Everything he believed about his family disappeared in that one silent moment. Finally, the man grabbed his clothes. "I should go," he muttered. Ethan stepped aside without saying a word. The stranger hurried past him, unable to look him in the eye. When the front door slammed shut, silence filled the house. Lauren reached for her robe. "Ethan!" He raised a trembling hand. "Don't!" Tears streamed down her face. "It isn't what you think." He laughed. Not because it was funny. Because his heart didn't know what else to do. "I literally saw him in our bedroom." She collapsed into a chair. "I know. You lied to me." "I know. You destroyed our family." She closed her eyes. "I know." For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan quietly asked the question that had been tearing him apart. "Who is he?" Lauren swallowed hard. "His name doesn't matter. It matters to me." She looked directly into his eyes. "No, it really doesn't." The answer only made him angrier. He grabbed his wedding ring and pulled it off. 15 years? He placed it on the dresser. "I gave you 15 years. Lauren suddenly stood. "No, don't take that off." "You already did." He turned toward the bedroom door. "I'm picking up Sophie." "Ethan." He didn't stop. Just before he reached the hallway, Lauren whispered something so softly he almost didn't hear it. "If you leave before I explain," her voice cracked, "you'll spend the rest of your life hating the wrong person." Ethan slowly turned around. Lauren was crying harder than he'd ever seen. Then she said 6 words that made the room feel ice cold. "I was trying to save your life." Ethan stared at Lauren, certain he'd misheard her. "I was trying to save your life." The words echoed in the silent bedroom. His jaw tightened. "Save my life?" he said bitterly. "You expect me to believe that sleeping with another man was somehow protecting me?" Lauren wiped away her tears but didn't argue. "I know how it looks. If I were you, I wouldn't believe me either." "Then start talking." She took a shaky breath. The man who just left isn't my boyfriend. Ethan let out a cold laugh. I just watched him walk out of our bedroom. I know. Then explain it. Lauren looked toward the family photo on the dresser, a picture of the three of them at Yellowstone National Park. Just a year earlier, his name is Daniel Brooks. He's a private investigator. Ethan frowned. A private investigator? Yes. His anger turned into confusion. What kind of investigation happens in a bedroom? Lauren lowered her head. It was staged. What? I asked him to make it look like I was having an affair. For a long moment, Ethan simply stared. You've lost your mind. I wish I had. She reached into the nightstand and pulled out a thick manila envelope. I never wanted you to see it this way. She handed it to him. Inside were photographs, bank statements, insurance documents, emails, legal papers. Ethan flipped through them, his heart racing. Then he saw something that made him stop. His own signature? On a life insurance policy, $5 million. I don't remember signing this. You didn't. He looked up sharply. What do you mean? It was forged? Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Lauren continued. About 6 months ago, I found paperwork hidden in your home office. At first I thought it was business-related. Then I noticed signatures that didn't look like yours. So you hired an investigator? She nodded. Daniel discovered someone had been watching our family. Ethan's face turned pale. Who? Lauren hesitated. I don't know yet. But Daniel believes whoever forged the policy wanted to make your death look accidental. The room fell silent. Ethan remembered the strange brake issue with his truck 2 months ago. The gas leak that firefighters had called unusual. The near miss with a speeding pickup while he was jogging. At the time, he'd dismissed them as bad luck. Now they didn't seem random anymore. You should have told me. I wanted to. Then why didn't you? Lauren's eyes filled with guilt. Daniel warned me that if the people behind this realized we were investigating, they might move faster, so you decided to fake an affair? It was the only way to convince anyone. Watching us that our marriage was falling apart. Ethan shook his head. Anyone watching us? Lauren nodded. They expected you to leave me. And if I left, they'd stop seeing me as a threat. Just then, a loud crash came from downstairs. Both of them froze. Someone had broken the kitchen window. A dark figure darted across the backyard before disappearing into the pouring rain. Ethan rushed to the window. Whoever it was had already vanished. But lying on the kitchen floor, surrounded by broken glass, was a small black envelope. No address. No stamp. Only 3 handwritten words. You're too late. For a long moment, Ethan and Lauren stood frozen in the kitchen. Rain blew through the shattered window. The black envelope lay on the floor between shards of glass. Neither of them wanted to touch it. Finally, Ethan slipped on a pair of gardening gloves from the garage and carefully picked it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed in bold black letters. Stop looking for the truth. The next funeral will belong to your daughter. Ethan's blood ran cold. Sophie. Without another word, he grabbed his car keys. Lauren stopped him. Wait, we can't rush in blindly. Our daughter is at school. I'm calling the police. Within minutes, officers arrived. They searched the property, photographed the broken window, and collected the threatening note as evidence. One detective, Detective Maria Bennett, listened carefully as Ethan and Lauren explained everything, from the forged life, insurance policy to the mysterious investigator, and the staged affair. When they finished, Detective Bennett's expression had changed. This isn't just a domestic dispute anymore, she said quietly. Someone has been planning something. The police immediately contacted Sophie's elementary school. Thankfully, she was safe. The principal had already placed the school on lockdown after receiving the detective's warning. An officer escorted Sophie home that evening. She ran straight into Ethan's arms. Daddy, why are there police cars outside? Ethan hugged her tighter than ever before. It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. But inside, he wasn't sure that was true. Later that night, Daniel Brooks, the private investigator, arrived again. This time through the front door. He looked exhausted. I just got off the phone with Detective Bennett, he said. I think I know who forged the insurance policy. Ethan leaned forward. Who? Daniel placed an old company photo on the dining table. There was one person who had access to your signature, your financial records, and knew exactly how much life insurance your company offered. Ethan stared at the photograph. Then his face drained of color. No? The man smiling in the picture was someone Ethan had trusted for nearly 20 years. His former business partner. His best friend. Michael Reynolds. The same man who had stood beside Ethan as the best man at his wedding. The same man Sophie called Uncle Mike. Lauren whispered, I didn't want you to find out like this. Ethan felt sick. Michael had been at their house just 2 weeks earlier for a family barbecue. He had laughed with Sophie, played catch in the backyard, shaken Ethan's hand before leaving. Now everything felt like a lie. Daniel slid one more document across the table. It's worse than you think. Ethan looked down. The document showed several large bank transfers. Millions of dollars, all linked to shell companies. One payment stood out, $250,000. The memo line read, Final payment upon confirmation. Confirmation of what? Ethan asked. Daniel met his eyes. I believe your death. At that exact moment, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. There was only one sentence. Ask Michael where he buried your brother. Ethan's hands began to shake. His brother, Ryan, had died in a boating accident 12 years earlier. Or at least, that's what everyone had believed. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off the message. Ask Michael where he buried your brother. His fingers trembled so badly that he nearly dropped the phone. Lauren read the text over his shoulder. Oh my God. Detective Bennett immediately took the phone and photographed the message. Did your brother have any enemies? She asked. Ethan slowly shook his head. Ryan was the kind of guy everyone liked. He was a volunteer firefighter. He coached Little League. He never hurt anyone, so how did he die? 12 years ago, Ethan said quietly. His fishing boat exploded on Lake Michigan. The Coast Guard recovered pieces of the boat, but never recovered Ryan's body. Daniel Brooks frowned. They never found a body? No. And nobody questioned that? They said the current could have carried him away. Daniel looked at Detective Bennett. That's unusual. The detective nodded. Very unusual? The next morning, Detective Bennett reopened Ryan's case. By noon, she called Ethan with shocking news. The evidence storage room still had debris from your brother's boat. I thought all that was destroyed. So did we. Forensic specialists examined the metal. Fragments using modern technology that hadn't existed 12 years earlier. The results arrived just before sunset. The explosion had not been caused by an engine malfunction. Tiny traces of military-grade explosives were embedded in the wreckage. Someone had planted a bomb. Ryan hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered. Ethan sat silently in his living room, unable to process the truth. If Ryan was murdered, he whispered, then why? Daniel opened a folder. I've been looking into Michael Reynolds. He spread several financial records across the table. 12 years ago, just weeks after Ryan's death, Michael quietly purchased 25% of your father's construction company. Ethan frowned. My dad always said Michael helped save the business. Daniel nodded. That's the story everyone believed. He slid another document forward. But here's what nobody knew. It was Ryan's original will. Ethan stared at it. His brother had owned 40% of the company. If Ryan had lived, Michael could never have gained control. Lauren gasped. So Ryan's death wasn't random. Daniel finished the sentence. It made Michael incredibly wealthy. The room fell silent. Just then, Sophie's voice echoed from upstairs. Dad, someone's outside! Everyone rushed to the front window. Across the street sat a dark sedan. Its engine was running. The windows were tinted. The driver wasn't moving, just watching the house. Detective Bennett quietly spoke into her radio. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars surrounded the vehicle. The driver stepped out slowly with his hands raised. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. It wasn't Michael. It wasn't a stranger. It was Ryan. Older, bearded. A scar ran across the left side of his face. But there was no mistaking those eyes. His brother, the man everyone believed had died 12 years. ago was standing in the middle of the street. Ryan looked directly at Ethan. With tears streaming down his face, he whispered just 4 words. I never stopped looking. For several seconds, no one moved. Ethan stared through the front window, unable to breathe. The man standing outside looked older, thinner, and worn by years of hardship. But there was no doubt. It was Ryan. Ethan threw open the front door and ran across the lawn. When he reached him, he stopped just inches away. His voice cracked. Is it really you? Ryan smiled through tears. I'm sorry, little brother. That was all it took. Ethan pulled him into a tight embrace. The 2 brothers stood in the middle of the street, crying like they hadn't cried since they were children. Even Detective Bennett quietly turned away to give them a moment. A few minutes later, everyone gathered inside the house. Sophie peeked around the corner. Daddy, is that Uncle Ryan? Ryan knelt down, tears filling his eyes. The last time I saw you, you were just a baby. Sophie wrapped her arms around him. I always wished I could meet you. Ryan hugged her tightly, unable to speak. After everyone settled down, Ethan finally asked the question that had haunted him for 12 years. What happened? Ryan took a deep breath. The explosion wasn't an accident. I know. I survived. Everyone froze. The bomb threw me into the lake before the boat caught fire. I was badly injured. Before I could swim to shore, 2 men pulled me onto another boat. They rescued you? Sophie asked innocently. Ryan slowly shook his head. No. They kidnapped me. Lauren covered her mouth in shock. Ryan continued. They worked for someone who wanted me to disappear forever. They kept me in remote cabins, moved me from state to state, and threatened to kill our family if I ever tried to escape. Ethan clenched his fists. Michael. Ryan nodded. He visited me himself. Several times. What did he want? He wanted control of Dad's company. Ryan looked Ethan straight in the eyes. And he believed I knew where Dad had hidden documents proving years of financial fraud. What documents? Dad discovered. Michael had been stealing money from the company. Long before the explosion, Ryan reached into his worn backpack. From a hidden pocket, he pulled out a small waterproof metal case. I escaped 3 weeks ago. I've been hiding. I came back because I couldn't let Michael hurt your family too. He opened the case. Inside was a flash drive, several old paper files, and a faded handwritten letter from their father. Detective Bennett carefully examined the documents. If these records are authentic, she looked up at Ethan. They could send Michael to prison for the rest of his life. Just then, the front doorbell rang. Everyone froze. No one had been expecting visitors. One officer checked the security camera. It's Michael. He wasn't alone. Standing behind him were 2 expensive lawyers. Michael smiled calmly into the camera. Then he looked directly at the lens and said, Tell Ethan I'll give him one chance to keep his family alive. The room fell silent. Everyone watched the security monitor as Michael Reynolds stood calmly on the front porch, wearing an expensive navy suit. He looked more like a successful businessman than a man accused of murder. Behind him, 2 attorneys carried briefcases. Detective Bennett immediately signaled the officers. Nobody opens that door until I say so. An officer stepped outside while the rest remained inside with Ethan and his family. Michael smiled politely. I'd like to speak to Ethan Carter. Anything you have to say can be said here, the officer replied. Michael glanced toward the camera mounted above the door. Then listen carefully. He slowly removed a sealed envelope from his jacket and handed it to the officer. This is my final offer. The envelope was brought inside. Ethan opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a legal agreement. If Ethan signed it, he would publicly admit that Ryan had stolen company funds before disappearing 12 years earlier. In exchange, Michael would transfer $25 million to Ethan's family and promise never to contact them again. At the bottom was a handwritten note. Take the money. Your daughter deserves to grow up with a father. Lauren looked horrified. He's trying to buy our silence. Ryan shook his head. No, he's threatening to kill Ethan if he refuses. Detective Bennett quietly nodded. That's exactly what this is. Just then, Daniel Brooks rushed into the room with his laptop. I found something. He connected it to the television. The screen showed security. Footage from a private marina, recorded 12 years earlier. The video was grainy but clear enough. A speedboat pulled away from the dock just minutes before Ryan's boat exploded. Michael was at the wheel. 2 other men climbed aboard with a large duffel bag. The timestamp matched the day Ryan disappeared. Ethan felt his stomach turn. "That's him." Detective Bennett smiled for the first time all day. "This is enough for a warrant." Within minutes, officers surrounded Michael on the front lawn. Detective Bennett stepped outside. "Michael Reynolds, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, kidnapping, and the murder of Ryan Carter." Michael didn't panic. He actually laughed. Then he raised both hands. "I've been waiting for this." The detective frowned. "What?" Michael looked directly at Ethan, who was standing in the doorway. "You still don't understand." His smile faded. "I wasn't the one giving the orders." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "What are you talking about?" Michael pointed toward the old family letter lying on the dining table. "Read the last page. You'll find the name of the person who ruined all our lives." As officers placed him in handcuffs, Michael whispered one final sentence. "The real enemy is already inside your family." The police car pulled away. Inside the house, Ethan slowly picked up his father's faded letter. The final page had been folded shut for years. With trembling hands, he unfolded it. His face turned completely pale. At the bottom, in his father's handwriting, were 7 chilling words. "If anything happens to me, trust no one except Emma." Ethan looked up in confusion. "Emma?" Lauren frowned. "Who's Emma?" Ryan closed his eyes. "I was afraid you'd ask that." The name echoed through the living room. "Emma." No one spoke for several seconds. Ethan looked at Ryan. "You know who she is, don't you?" Ryan nodded slowly. "I've known since I was 17. Ethan's eyes widened. "You kept this from me?" Ryan lowered his head. "I promised Dad I would." Lauren gently took Ethan's hand. "Let him explain." Ryan unfolded the yellowed letter completely. A second page had been stuck to the back with old tape. As he carefully separated it, another handwritten note appeared. "Ryan, if you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong. If I cannot protect our family, find Emma. She knows the truth I could never tell your brother." Ethan's heart pounded. "What truth?" Ryan looked directly into his eyes. "Emma isn't just someone Dad trusted." He paused. "She's our older sister." The room fell silent. Sophie blinked in confusion. "Daddy, you have a sister?" Ethan could barely speak. "No, Dad only had 2 children." "That's what everyone believed," Ryan replied. 39 years ago, before Dad married Mom, he had a daughter with his college sweetheart. She died during childbirth, and the baby was adopted by another family. Ethan felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath him. "So, we've had a sister our entire lives." Ryan nodded. "Dad spent decades searching for her. 5 years before he died, he finally found her. Why didn't he tell us?" "He was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Michael." He explained that Michael had discovered the reunion and threatened to expose private family secrets unless their father transferred more company control to him. Their father refused. "That's when Dad started collecting evidence against Michael," Ryan said. "And that's when everything began." Detective Bennett entered the room holding a file. "We ran the name Emma through the records Ryan provided." She laid a driver's license on the table. "Emma Carter, now Emma Lawson. Age 42. Occupation, trauma surgeon. She lived in Seattle." "There was something else," Bennett said quietly. 3 days ago, someone broke into Dr. Lawson's home." Ethan looked up. "Was she hurt?" "No. But whoever searched her house knew exactly what they were looking for." Just then Ryan's phone rang. "An unknown number," he answered cautiously. No one spoke. Then a frightened woman's voice whispered, "Ryan." "It's Emma." "I'm safe for now." A loud crash sounded in the background. She gasped. "They found me." The call went dead. Ryan stared at the phone in horror. Detective Bennett grabbed her keys. "We're leaving for Seattle immediately." As Ethan reached for his jacket, his phone vibrated with a news alert. A breaking news headline filled the screen. Private plane carrying Seattle surgeon missing over the Rocky Mountains. The passenger listed on the flight manifest was Emma Lawson. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. The news report repeated the same horrifying headline. Private plane carrying Seattle surgeon missing over the Rocky Mountains. Ryan grabbed the remote and turned up the volume. Authorities believed the aircraft had disappeared from radar just 20 minutes after takeoff. No survivors had been found. Lauren looked at Detective Bennett. "We have to get there." Before anyone could leave, Ryan's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. Only 2 words. "I'm alive." Attached was a GPS location deep in the Colorado mountains. A race against time. Within hours, the FBI joined the investigation. Using the GPS signal, a rescue helicopter flew into the mountains. Hidden inside an abandoned hunting cabin, they found Emma. She was cold, exhausted, and terrified, but alive. She had escaped moments before the people chasing her returned. When Ethan finally stepped off the helicopter and saw her, neither of them spoke. They simply stared at each other. Emma smiled through tears. "You have Dad's eyes." Ethan broke down. For 39 years, he had never known he had an older sister. Now she was standing in front of him. The 3 siblings, Ethan, Ryan, and Emma, embraced for the first time in their lives. The final evidence. Back in Chicago, Emma opened a small fireproof lockbox she had protected for years. Inside were documents their father had entrusted to her. Among them was a video recorded just 6 months before his death. On the screen, their father looked tired but determined. "If you're watching this," he began, "I may no longer be here. I made mistakes in my life. The biggest was believing Michael Reynolds was family." He went on to describe years of fraud, embezzlement, blackmail, and the plot to seize the family company. Then he looked directly into the camera. "Ethan, Ryan, and Emma, don't waste your lives seeking revenge. Seek justice. And never let greed destroy the family that love built. Justice at last." The evidence was overwhelming. Michael Reynolds accepted a plea deal to avoid a lengthy public trial. He confessed to orchestrating the insurance fraud, kidnapping Ryan, financial crimes, and multiple conspiracies that had destroyed the Carter family. Several of his associates were also arrested. The Carter family's company was returned to Ethan and Ryan, who chose to sell it and create a charitable foundation in their parents' names. Emma continued her work as a trauma surgeon, volunteering with families who had lost loved ones to violent crime. Lauren, whose painful decision to stage the affair had nearly cost her marriage, finally earned Ethan's forgiveness. It wasn't immediate. Trust took time. Months of honest conversations, counseling, and healing slowly rebuilt what had been broken. One evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Sophie looked at everyone and smiled. "So, does this mean we're all together now?" Ethan looked around the room. Lauren, Ryan, Emma, Sophie. He smiled with tears in his eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. For the first time in a very long time, we're finally home." The end. Moral. Trust should never be blind, but neither should love. The truth may hurt, yet facing it with courage can heal even the deepest wounds. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It creates the chance for a better future. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Your support helps bring more emotional stories like this to life.